Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sterling Heights City Council to order. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our elected officials. Grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mrs. Riska. Can we please have the roll call?
Mayor Taylor?
Here.
Mrs. Sarowski?
Here.
Mrs. Koski?
Present.
Mr. Radke?
Present.
Mrs. Schmidt?
Present.
Mr. Yanes?
Here.
Mrs. Zarko?
Present.
Thank you, Council. We need approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First item on our agenda tonight is a report from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. First, housekeeping item. In recognition of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, city offices will be closed for business on Monday, January the 20th, which is the day before our next city council meeting. And this will not, however, affect our refuse collection schedule. And also, there was some discussion recently, including a city council meeting, about the condition of the railroad crossing on 15 Mile Road. The good news is that we have learned from MDOT that funding has been fully approved to install a new crossing at 15 Mile Road. So that's between Van Dyke and Mound. So that work will be done this construction season between spring and fall. We don't know the exact timing yet, but the good news is funding is in order now. And I also wanted to mention, since it was brought up at a council meeting recently, that the Macomb County Warming Center will be open in Sterling Heights at St. Blaise Catholic Church from January 19th through January 26th, and then moves on to Utica United Methodist Church, also in Sterling Heights, from January 26th to February 2nd. So I thought the community might be interested in knowing that. If you know of anyone in need or who needs shelter, the center will be here for those 2 weeks. It then rotates around Macomb County throughout the winter months, and you can go to the Macomb County Warming Center webpage for more information. And Mayor, lastly, at the conclusion of tonight's agenda, I'm requesting that the City Council convene a closed session pursuant to Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act for Council to consult with the City Attorney regarding a confidential written legal opinion. And that concludes my report this evening.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. Next item on our agenda is a presentation, and this is a presentation in the Nice Neighbor Award. And tonight I have the honor of handling this. And tonight we are recognizing Frank Lalama of Vanguard Realty Group. And as everyone knows, the Nice Neighbor program honors homeowners and businesses who improve the quality of life for their neighbors. So the Community Relations Department is proud to present Mr. Lalama of Vanguard Realty Group for recognition as this recipient. And in support of his nomination, I spoke with Mr. Lalama, and he told me about a program he was going to do here in the city of Sterling Heights. Frank is a former resident. He grew up here in the city of Sterling Heights, attended Sterling Heights High School, where he was a pitcher on the baseball team, graduating in 1998. He attended Wayne State University and pitched for them, played baseball there. And he told me he wanted to give back to the community where he grew up and where he's invested here. They have a business. They are developing some houses in Sterling Heights, a really nice project we're excited about. And he told me about getting in touch with the high school to sponsor a couple kids to go to a Wayne State University baseball camp. And what Frank told me is that he truly believes that being a student athlete teaches life lessons that you'll reference back to many times as you grow into an adult. And he says he owes a lot of his success, both personal and in business, to athletics. And he said you'll meet so many people and you'll have many friends and mentors that will come into your life along the way. Some of those people will impact your life in ways that you could never have imagined. And he still speaks to several of his coaches to this very day. And I can attest to that as somebody who played sports growing up. It teaches you a lot of life lessons, and It's very important, I think, for youth to be involved in sport, athletics, dance, whatever it is, something extracurricular. And so for Frank and Vanguard Realty to sponsor these two young men to go be part of, was it the Alan Trammell baseball camp down at Wayne State University in Detroit? It's a very special thing and something I hope pays dividends for them and helps them in their career as youth baseball players. So Frank, why don't you meet me up front, bring the two baseball players with you. And it's my honor to recognize Frank Lalama. Thank you, Frank. And so I'm just going to read from this here. Frank Lalama of Vanguard Realty Group, in recognition of your efforts to assist your community and contributions in making Sterling Heights overall quality of life second to none, it's my honor to present you with this nice neighborhood award.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You want to introduce the baseball players you got with us?
Happy New Year, everybody. I just wanted to introduce Nick and Anthony Broll. They are Sterling Heights residents. They are a Stevenson and Davis product, Davis Junior High. So just a quick, this will kind of attest to the city of Sterling Heights, but I contacted Coach Emmanuel, who I go way back with from Stevenson High School. And I said, we're looking for a couple, or 4 kids actually, but that show good academic performance, obviously, and also that have a commitment to athletics. And these were 2 that he thought of immediately. I got to meet these 2 guys pretty much all day, spending time with Lance Parrish and Alan Trammell, which was pretty cool. I met the parents, great people, and I just think, you know, bringing it full circle between Stevenson High School all the way through to me giving back to, you know, the city I grew up in pretty much for 25 years, I thought was a great thing rather than just making a donation. So I don't know if these guys want to say anything, but 2 guys to look out for on the field in the next few years.
All right.
So I appreciate it.
Guys, you
Thank
want to say
very much.
anything, or? No? All right, got it. One more big round of applause.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Good job, Frank. Next item on our agenda tonight is an ordinance adoption, and this is to adopt the First Amendment to the Appropriations Ordinance for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this item? Ms. Godfrey?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. 2 issues that are on the approval for the appropriations ordinance. One would be the community block grant. I noticed, and I got an explanation from Mrs. Varney, and I really appreciated that. But under the summary, there was a combination listed of the senior citizen home chore program in the amount of $27,200 and the single parent education program in the amount of $13,000. So in the summary, it was combined with contributions to nonprofit organizations. I'm not quite sure that home chore belongs in nonprofit, but maybe that could be explained later. I would also like to comment, hopefully this year when we start to divvy out the community block grant monies, that we spend more for home chore programs based on watching the public viewing of the board and seniors that have been given notices to appear here. And we don't have the money to help them out. We spent $434,000 on carpeting at the senior building out of the block grant money. Now, our city should be considering our elderly and also those that have issues, medical issues, where it's almost virtually impossible for them to do the necessary repairs. I do want to give kudos to Bob Irwin. He has been handling the meetings wonderfully. He is very respectful and very courteous to those that appear before the board, and I would like to thank him for a job well done. Also, the second thing is the $50,000 that has been reappropriated from the budget from a $20,000 amount to a $50,000 amount for the fire department for this study. I take issue with having to do study after study after study after study because either the administration and/or those in charge of the duties responsible for at the fire department can't handle it. We're talking $70,000. I have a real problem with that, and I just wanted to point it out to the people that there was a reappropriation of an additional $50,000. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Godfrey. Anyone else under this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Zarko.
resolve to adopt the First Amendment to the Appropriations Ordinance for the 2019-2020 fiscal year.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on any item on tonight's consent agenda? Ms. Godfrey?
Agenda item H, the study for the fire department. I take real issue with this, and obviously over the years, all of you are fully aware that I have been on top of this for almost 30-some years. You really haven't taken that into consideration because currently we're close to $13 million in the hole regarding this program, if not more. Now, what is being said is that we are over the projected revenues for transport recovery. Well, that may be a fact, but the operating costs are astronomical. And with a consideration in spending $70,000 on another study and a contract in the backup material that is nothing more than a draft is unconscionable. I was told in an email that this contract would be corrected with the proper information after the fact, which means that I have to pay under FOI for a copy of the corrected contract. I take issue with that. The proper information should be contained within the backup information that you have given to the public. It says that it is not to exceed $69,000. And the date is December 14th, 2019. Today is January 7th, 2020. Now, I'm being told it will be corrected, but this isn't the way to do business, to inform the public and give them the proper information to make a proper decision as to how they feel about this. The city's portion of this contract is totally blank. There is not to exceed dollar amount. I would also recommend if you want to spend more money, or if more money hasn't already been spent prior to by Mr. Vanderpool and his $10,000 monies that are allocated for him to spend, that's a question that I would want answered too. Have you spent money toward the Matrix company or any affiliate of prior to tonight's agenda item? Also, QUAP has not been considered in this. That is a tax that the state is going to impose for every run that we make. When I was told that I didn't know what I was talking about a number of years ago, y'all knew I was right. Also, the individuals that are listed as performing this study, I would like you to consider adding an additional individual. His name is Dr. David Ross. He is a certified fraud examiner and holds a certificate in internal controls by the Institute of Internal Auditors. Based on prior surveys, documents, studies, our books were padded, and they had to be corrected. I don't want to see that happen again, and if you need the documentation, I'll be glad to give it to you. So hopefully you will all consider not going through with this evening, even though it's on the consent agenda and it has no place being there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Godfrey. Anyone else on the consent agenda? Mr. Russo?
I got a couple here that I want to talk about. This, the tree planting where you're trying to get 165,000, yet 40,000 of it is going to be reimbursed by citizens that request a new tree. I'd like to understand how part of that's being covered by citizens that are paying taxes that want a tree. Is it just people that say, hey, I don't like that tree, I want a different tree? Or is it one that a car hit and now we have to replace the tree? So that's, you know, kind of not explaining how the property owners are, their request, what qualifies that request. The other one is kind of what Mrs. Godfrey's talking about the study for the fire department. And then you got a couple things here for the police department. I seem to remember we lost about 20 police officers in the past here from them retiring because they weren't extending their pension if they exceeded their time limit. So we lost 20. We lost about, I would say, almost 20 firemen. Why are we doing any kind of study to understand whether we need firemen and police officers? Now, the other night, I happened to be building a house on Poplar Street, and if it wasn't the great work of the police department, they caught a criminal that was stealing packages off of your sidewalks, okay? And they happened to come into my new build on Poplar, and that's where they actually caught him leaving there. They've been under surveillance for 2 weeks. Now, the other incident was the other day, the grab and run on people purchasing something. So these people come out to Sterling Heights, they want to buy something, they go to look at it, and they take off running, and happened that our police officers caught them. So
Sir, what item are you speaking about?
this is between helping the police, never mind.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Russo. Anyone else under the consent agenda? Mr. Neal?
Hello. As usual, there's so much information given to us given to the people. Like item B, bill listing. Could we get some information about what that means? Or as usual, is the city administration just going to ignore me and pretend like no one cares about this but you? And along with trees, we're talking about planting trees, and I believe that's for into the front. I'm wondering, is there a way to find out what trees are appropriate? I had a neighbor who had a tree who was there for, I think he planted in 2004, and it was recently ripped up. It was an apple tree, and it was removed by the city 2 years ago. and they said it was a wrong type of tree. And I'm kind of curious, is there a list, or is there a way for us to know what trees we can or cannot plant on our properties? And secondly, I've talked to Mr. Yanis, this is kind of a little off subject, but we've had some correspondence, basically almost ever since you've been in city council, and still to no results. I mean, we're talking about new trees, yet we still have dead trees in our parks that are still yet to be replaced, and they're just gonna keep dying. I keep on, as you know, I've been trying to talk with you, and the only thing I get back from you is, oh, I'll get onto it, oh, I'm meeting with this person, I'm meeting with this person. Yet, season after season, nothing happens. So, it's nice to see some trees replaced in our parks as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neal. Anyone else on the consent agenda? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Kosky.
move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. With no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item on our agenda tonight is to consider introduction of a map amendment to zoning ordinance number 278 to conventionally rezone property situated on the south side of Utica Road west of Hayes Road in section 24 from R60, one-family residential, and FP floodplain district to RM3 multiple-family mid and high-rise. This is case number PZ 19-0006, Saxon Park. We have a presentation from our city planner, Chris McLeod. Mr. McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, and Mr. Vanderpool. Before you tonight is the potential introduction for the conventional rezoning for Saxon Park, that case number being PZ 19-0006, as you note. However, in the very recent history here, the applicant has requested this application be indefinitely postponed. We received that information yesterday. So before I go into a long presentation of this application, again, that presentation has been made, or that request has been made by the applicant. So it's a question of whether the council would like to grant that or not at this particular time. If not, then we can go into the presentation. But again, that request has been made.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McLeod. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Ms. Godfrey.
I would hope that the council will take dire consideration into this project, only because this is the second that you have placed on a wetland area. We have had issues over the past month, 2 months, regarding the Red Run Drain, the Clinton River, Madison Heights issue, the drains. Please, please be very conscious of what you're doing. Whose liability would this end up being? You've already okayed a project on Van Dyke adjacent to the Clinton River, which is a wetland. And now you're considering doing likewise on a wetland area here. I want you to be very cognizant of what you might be creating for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Godfrey. Anyone else? Mr. Jefferson?
Charles Jefferson, Sterling Heights. Maybe Mr. Vanderpool can straighten this out. But I believe that was old farmer, was going to be a Farmer Jack site at one point. But in any case, I wish you folks would really consider not doing anything until we come back with a traffic study from the county, because that is only a 2-lane road for multifamily, high-level, high-rise. That road is under pretty big stress as it is right now, being Utica Road there. I think we need to look into that and seriously not do anything until we get something back from the county saying they're gonna expand, they're gonna repave that road. Some kind of traffic study needs to be done right there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Anyone else on this item? Mr. Neal?
I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the area that I'm talking about. Isn't the area that's kind of like in the middle, like there's roads on both sides and there's kind of like a forested area? And if it is a wetland area, why don't we have more of that? You know, why can't we keep some more natural? I mean, we've torn down, we always talk about preserving, you know, habitats and also and being a tree city, yet we also seem to be doing the opposite. I mean, every time I drive around the city, I see all of the things like on Utica and by 16 Mile. That might not be, but I think it's like right on the edge of the city, by where Bishop Gallagher's field used to be. You know, I remember just seeing in the fall, you could just see all the trees, all knocked down, all old growth trees. And we hear all this time, especially from Councilman Yanez, especially around Earth Day, which is good to talk about. You know, what are you going to do about this, or what are you going to do to help the environment? But here's my question. What are you doing? I mean, you're sitting on the city council. Are you talking about this? We have areas, and I've mentioned this before years ago, and we have areas that are being, you know, mowed on the side of streets. We have I'm not sure the location, but it says wetland area. It's by 17 Mile and Shaner, yet why is it being mowed? We have areas alongside Shaner that are being mowed. I don't know if it's city, if it's county, privately. But anyways, you know, why is an area that's got to be, you know, that's basically below the bridge on Shaner, why are we mowing that? Why don't we just let it grow natural? And likewise with many other things. One thing I loved about this city is we used to have a lot of these things. We used to have, you know, so many trees, and it seems like almost any place you can, you're so filled with greed that all you guys want to do is just knock down everything you can, build up everything you can. And we have so much that, like, we have another gas station going up by Plumbrook. I mean, in the middle of do we not have enough gas stations? Do we really even need gas? I mean, a lot of car companies are not even building gas vehicles anymore. They're going for almost all electric. Why are we building up charging stations instead of building up more gas stations? You know, do we need more convenience stores so people can buy liquor? I mean, or vaping products? It's just absolutely ridiculous. I think we're going in quite the wrong direction. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Neal. Yes, ma'am?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vesna Čizmić, and I'm a resident of Sterling Heights, Vanda Park subdivision. And I would like to ask you to deeply reconsider building on a wetland, because when I was building my house about 12 years ago in Vanda subdivision, my house was last built because the rest of the land was considered wetland, and it was under 100-year of Corps engineers protected zone that was not allowing anyone to build any property, any housing. However, some contractor purchased the rest of the land, and he got the permit to build several houses. After 3 houses are built behind my house, now I have a constant flooding in my backyard. And you know, that's the problem. So from my personal experience, I would ask you, also as an engineer, I would ask you to highly reconsider that so people don't have flooding issue if something is in flood zone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Shea?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and residents. Saxton Acres, I know where that's at, right on Utica Road. The question I have is, how many acres is this property? Because north of there, they're building a development too, and I'd like to know how many acres and how many buildable acres there is on that property. Because I don't know how far back it goes. Does it go all the way to 16 Mile Road, or where does it start and stop? And what is the width on Utica Road, or how wide is the piece and stuff? Because the property we were talking about before, it was closer to Utica Road and Hayes. That's where they wanted to build the Kroger's, next to Saxton Acres, and it's been stopped. So if you can just answer those questions, thank you.
All right, thank you. Jerry, anyone else on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to postpone indefinitely at the request of the petitioner.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Mr. Koszybski is,
There is discussion on this motion.
okay. Any discussion, Mrs. Koski?
I I'm going to refer to the city attorney or Mr. Vanderpool and let him explain why we are doing this.
Do any of you want to take this, or Mr. McLeod, kind of, you want to give any more background on the applicant's request for an indefinite postponement here?
I'd be glad to. So the issues that were raised by the residents that spoke here tonight were some of the exact same issues that were talked about extensively at the Planning Commission. Again, Planning Commission for rezonings makes a recommendation to City Council, so you are dealing with a recommendation from them. But the applicant heard those comments being made at the Planning Commission, and specifically in their request for postponement, they addressed the fact that they want to take a look or further look at the wetland issues on site and other hydrological issues on the site as well. So they want the time and the ability to review those and how that may or may not impact their proposal going forward. So again, they've heard those comments from the public hearing, and they're seeking additional time to potentially address those issues or further research them.
Okay. Mrs. Koski, anything else?
The only other thing I would like to add to that is at this point, the recommendation was to deny. So they are definitely going to have to do some work if they expect to do anything with that property.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Arco?
Through the chair to Mr. Koszewski, would you explain the difference between postponing and postponing indefinitely? And does that affect who can bring this back and have it put on the agenda, whether it's the petitioner, the city, or council? Could you explain that, please?
Sure. If there was a motion to postpone to a certain date, then that could be done. That's one way to do this. A motion to postpone indefinitely provides the city administration the latitude to bring it back to council when the petitioner is ready and requests that they have an opportunity to bring it back. And depending on what happens and how long they take for their study, it may come back or it may not. Otherwise, the council has opportunity to put it on the table, but then the council will have to bring it back at a certain date and at a date they'd want to, and that's a different process.
And I just wanted
Three
you,
ways.
thank you, but I wanted you to explain that because I know there's people in this room that'll probably be watching the agendas to see if this comes back, and I wanted to make sure that they knew that there's a possibility it might not come back, but just to be on the lookout that it could. Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing further.
Council, anyone else?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Schmidt?
So through the chair, to Mr. Koszewski, to piggyback on to Mrs. Yarko, so if it were to come back, of course, those neighbors would be notified once again, and we would have it posted on the property, correct?
Mr. Koszewski?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this, because it's a conventional rezoning that comes to you, I don't believe there's a notice that goes out to any of the residents.
Oh,
It would be a normal council agenda item that would be posted in its normal course.
okay. Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Council, anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda tonight is to consider nominations to boards and commissions. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this item? All right, if not, there are 3 openings tonight. 2 are on the Planning Commission. The first is to a partial term ending June 30th, 2021. For that partial term, I would like to nominate Pashko Weekai. Pashko is a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I would nominate him to serve as the liaison member between the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've asked Mr. Weekai if he would be willing to serve that, and he enthusiastically said he would. So I would appreciate somebody making that nomination.
So moved. Because the mayor nominated him, I will move it. I forget the words. You always do it so well, Barb.
Oh, can you read it?
On the
recommendation of the mayor.
On the recommendation of
Resolved
the
to
mayor.
nominate Pashko Yukai for consideration as an appointee to the Planning Commission at the January 21st, 2020 regular city council meeting.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Thank you, Mr. Radke. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Radke?
I know that this, the person who had previously resigned from the Planning Commission was the ZBA's liaison to the Planning Commission. So we have to appoint a current member of the Planning Commission to be the liaison now, correct, Mr. Mayor?
No. So I don't believe We don't need to, so this is a planning commission appointment, so I think you misspoke. We don't need to appoint somebody that's on the ZBA since so I think what you meant is, do we have to appoint somebody who's already on the ZBA right now?
Yeah.
To fill the one of the planning commission vacancies? Technically, I think the answer is no. While we are required to have one member serve on both, since there's a ZBA opening, we could theoretically appoint a new ZBA member who would be a new member to both the ZBA and the planning commission. But to what I think your question was, we are required to have one member who is
On both.
on both the planning and the zoning.
Okay. That's all I have. I think he'd be a great appointment.
Anyone else? Mrs. Sarowski?
Yeah, and I'll just echo that I do know Pashko Wikai. He has been a member of the ZBA for quite a long time. He's a very active member in the community. He has done a lot of things behind the scenes for the community, so I think that he would be great in this position, so I also support it.
Okay, council, anyone else? With no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. There is a second planning commission opening. This is to a partial term ending June 30th, 2020. I have spoken with a resident by the name of Nathan Inks. Nathan is an attorney, and he works as a clerk for Justice David Viviano. He is a member of our, Solid Waste Commission. He expressed interest in serving on the Planning Commission, and I think he'd make a great addition. So I would appreciate a nomination for Nathan Inks.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Schmidt.
on the mayor's recommendation, resolved to nominate Nathan Inks for consideration as an appointee to the Planning Commission at the January 21st, 2020 regular city council meeting.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
No, I have no.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Radke?
I know Nathan is as an excellent attorney. I think he'd do a great job. He talks about wanting to get more involved in the city, and I think this is a great appointment.
I agree. I had a very productive meeting with Nathan, and I think he shares some of the ideas that this council does, and I think he would make a great addition to the Planning Commission. So I appreciate the nomination. With no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There is one opening for the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is a partial term ending June 30th, 2020. It's a city council appointment. Is there anyone who has a nomination to the Zoning Board of Appeals? Once, going twice. Okay, if none, I would entertain a motion to postpone to the January 17th, or I'm sorry, January 21st, 2020 city council meeting.
So moved.
Support. It's been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes that portion of our agenda. We'll move on to communications from citizens. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda? Ms. Godfrey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last time tonight, I promise. This is not about the reappropriations budget, okay? I'm just going to highlight the activity number, which is 988276 for bridge repair. It was Riverland and 15 Mile Maple Lane for a total cost of $42,540. The Riverland Bridge is in disrepair already. The approaches to the bridge, as well as broken concrete on the approaches and the lines within the bridge. So I hope we can get that taken care of. Also, there is a traffic light that needs to be addressed at Delco Plaza and Canal. It is on a pole. It is not the overhead, and it has been out for almost 5 months. So that hasn't been taken care of. And I do have a quick question. I was made aware of this prior to this last millage approval for Safe Streets, and I didn't bring it up, but I'm just curious. Under whose authority was it that we moved Parks and Grounds from the DPW over to the Recreation, Parks and Rec? because now that is a portion of the millage, not a portion of the general city's operating costs. And I would like to know under whose authority it was that actually did that. And I guess maybe I should ask how much it's cost us in additional taxes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Godfrey. Anyone else under communications from citizens? Take you first in the front.
Good evening. My name's Danny Middleton. I'm the Communities Coordinator for Welcoming Michigan. We are a project of the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center, and we are also a member of Welcoming America. We are proud to partner with the City of Sterling Heights, including residents and community organizations, to build a more inclusive and welcoming community for all residents who call Sterling Heights and Macomb County home. Excuse me. I'm here today to express our support for the county's recent decision to continue to welcome and resettle refugees. And while additional consent is not required by individual cities and townships within the county, we wanted to share our perspective with Sterling Heights leaders because we have appreciated your support for refugees over the years as well. County Executive Hackle recently sent a letter to Secretary Pompeo indicating the county's consent to continue refugee resettlement. This consent letter is in response to a federal executive order issued in September 2019, which placed a new requirement on state and county governments to indicate their willingness to continue refugee resettlement in local communities. A refugee is a person forced to flee their home country to escape war, violence, or persecution. The refugee resettlement process includes a careful selection by governments for purposes of lawful admission of the most vulnerable persons who can neither return to their home country nor live in safety in neighboring host countries. The process is lengthy and involves security screening by several federal departments. Less than 1% of the world's refugees are approved for resettlement in another country. The United States and Macomb County have long histories of welcoming refugees and successful integration into local communities. Both Sterling Heights and Macomb County are part of a national network of welcoming cities and countries, committed to creating an inclusive environment for newcomers where everyone feels welcome, including immigrants and refugees. This is so important in Sterling Heights, where 27% of residents are foreign-born and 11% of residents in Macomb County. Sterling Heights in the county are home to many organizations led by and serving immigrants of all backgrounds. Additionally, Sterling Heights and Macomb County have a long history of welcoming refugees, including refugees from Iraq, Bosnia, and Vietnam. Refugee residents have gone on to become business owners, volunteers, and valued members of our local communities. We live in the same neighborhoods, our kids go to school together, and our families share the same hopes and dreams. We want to thank Executive Hackle for continuing the county's support for refugee resettlement, and we thank the City of Sterling Heights for your partnership over the years. We look forward to seeing continued welcoming efforts in both the city and the county so that both US-born and immigrant community members can experience equity and belonging where they live, work, and play. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Middleton. I think I picked up an Australian accent, and our thoughts are with you in your country right now. I'll take you next, ma'am, right behind her. Miss Early, if you don't mind, could you turn the flash off on your camera? Thank you.
My name is Carol Chi, and I'm a resident of Sterling Heights since 1981. And I'm just here to announce an event. Dana Nessel is coming to speak in Sterling Heights on January 30th. It's a Thursday night from 7 to 9 p.m. She'll be speaking for about 15, 20 minutes and taking a few questions for a few minutes. At UAW Local 228, we're starting Femmes for Democracy in Sterling Heights, actually in Macomb County. It was very successful in Oakland County, and we're moving on to Macomb County and perhaps more counties. So I have a little invite if you'd like to. Could I put this up or anything?
You can hand it to our clerk, and she'll pass it along to us. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. G. I'll take you again, ma'am.
Good evening again. My name is Vesna Čizmić. I am program manager at Samaritas, and I work with refugees, managing employment department, and also I work with resettlement. I also want to show support with Mr. Huckle's agreement, and I want to tell that Macomb County is not the only one that is supporting resettlement refugees in Michigan. Many other counties signed the same agreement, and I heard that some individuals have a problem with resettling refugees in Sterling Heights. I myself am a refugee from Bosnia that have been resettled in 1995. All these years I worked, and as many refugees we worked, we pay taxes, we purchased houses, we are business owners. Look around yourself in this city, check front yards, backyards, check houses that are being purchased and taxes being paid by refugees and immigrants. Check businesses around yourself, check schools and kids and their success in schools. And I will tell you as the manager of School Impact Program at Samaritas that all the kids are passing to the next grade at the end of the year. As a manager of employment services, I will tell you that 80% of refugees resettled in the United States get their job within 6 months after arrival. And they're coming with one bag or no bags in their hands. And I would like to ask those people that are opposed to Mr. Huckle's supported letter of resettlement, check your ancestors. Are they immigrants? They might be. So personally, I don't see the big issue. There are no criminals. There are no people deported. So I simply don't see why hate exists and why refugees wouldn't be continue to be resettled in Sterling Heights. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate it. Anyone else under communications from citizens? Mr. Russo?
Well, to finish my story about the way the police handled the whole situation, we had the fortune of being able to watch this on a video on most of the
Mr. Neal,
major
I'm
news
sorry,
channels.
can you hold his time? Mr. Neal, if you would please keep your comments to yourself until you have the floor. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Russo.
Okay, sorry about that. Interrupt Julio Day or?
Start
what's
his
up
time
with
over.
that?
We'll start your time over. I do apologize.
All right. What I was getting at is in my story of, I'm here to really commend the police department on what they did the other night in my situation, but that night, and it was New Year's Day evening, and with the communication that the police department did with me was just, it was phenomenal. I learned a lot about what's going on and how they learned to catch this guy. They did a phenomenal job, and what I was getting to is the video, which is one of the things that was on here. So I really think that we need to, I know, the parks are done, the center across the street's done. We've spent tons of money on, making things look good in the community. And I remember a while back when things weren't so good and we lost a lot of support for our police and firemen, and we lost that coverage. And I know for a fact that some of the parks and are covered with the police department on overtime. But I would really like to see us working toward a better police force. We don't want other communities coming over here and thinking that we're easy. And I think by more support from the police and the firemen, That would help the whole community to make exactly what Mr. Vanderpool his goals are for this community, because I know he's on the right road. It's just, we don't want to miss out on spending money on things that, in the end, we don't have to support our police, okay? So it's imperative that we try to get to that situation again. I know their pensions aren't as good and some of the other things. I know that 80% of their pensions in this community are covered already. And that's a big attaboy for this Mr. Vanderpool, because most communities don't have that privilege. They're probably 30% of their pensions are covered for the police and the firemen. So I think my numbers are right from what I hear. But we have to focus on that, because this community is special. And the only way we can keep it special is that we have the protection and the know-how in our police force to make it happen. And it's just fabulous. Now, I've had issues with Merrill Road, and Mr. Vanderpool's gotten right on the program, and we have a meeting set up here in the future. And I think that's the way this is all has to happen. The police chief's going to be one of the people at the meeting, and I don't want it to be something that it's favoring me. I want it to favor people in Sterling Heights, so they see how you listen to us, not how we just come up here and start screaming things out, okay? That shouldn't get to that point, and on that same message, that shouldn't be coming out personally out here either. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Russo. Anyone else under communications? Mr. Jefferson?
Charles Jefferson, Sterling Heights. It's January, and it's time for the same old January speech I've been giving for probably the last 10 years. And that is, this city council really needs to start looking into getting metal detectors at the doors of City Hall here. We need to think about getting metal detectors over at the new community center. We need to get metal detectors over at the library and all public places here in Sterling Heights. We had a shooting over the holiday weekend, as we all know, at a church in Texas. The perpetrator, he happened to get killed by a couple of people that were in the congregation. But unfortunately, he was still able to squeeze off a couple rounds and kill people. Maybe if they had metal detectors at the beginning, maybe that wouldn't have happened. People would still be here with us. It's something that needs to happen, and it's something that really needs to be started to be considerate, because the time is ticking. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Now, at the last meeting, Mr. Yanez, we had a conversation. I thank you for your answering me about what was happening with the several departments here in Sterling Heights. Thanks. But at this point, the way I see it is, it's a little late. Because if any person, a woman, person of color, transgender, if they so happen to now get hired at this point, will that be a token move, or will that be the way it should be all the time? As I said, at this point, it only look like that may be a token move to appease some people. And you can't tell me that the fire department doesn't have organizations for women, transgender people, and colored people. I don't know if they're being reached out to or not. Tonight, for example, Mike Radke should be making an apology to the citizens of Sterling Heights. I doubt if he will, because he told two gentlemen that they should be dating each other. That was uncalled for. Mayor Taylor was asked to respond to it. No response. And he was the one, Mayor Taylor brought it up a few years ago about discrimination here in Sterling Heights, about the gays, the lesbians, the bisexual, and transgender. And unfortunately, you've done nothing, and we know it. We know it. You just gave us lip service. What has your actions done? Are you going to ask Radke to apologize to the residents of Sterling Heights tonight? Doubt it. So, there we have it, the start of a new year. I hope everybody is safe for this year. I hope we can get things straightened out and back on the right road around here in Sterling Heights. This treatment of people here with this council and certain people here in Sterling Heights is unacceptable. And I want to be the first, probably, as a long-time Sterling Heights citizen, I'm not going to take this treatment any longer by any of you people. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Jefferson. Mr. Shea?
Good evening, mayors, city council, administration. Hope everyone had a nice Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I was here at your last council meeting, and I have to say, I've been coming here, I can't believe I'll be turning 60 in June. I've been coming here since I was just before my 21st birthday. And I've had some really good times and some really crazy times up here, I can tell you that. And I was here before there was TV, and I'm here with TV. But after last meeting, I posted, I post stuff on Facebook on some political sites and stuff. And after last meeting, I got on the site and I read something, and someone made a comment that Sterling Heights is becoming the city of hate. And I read that and I said, that's not the city I live in. That's definitely not the city I live in. It never has been. It's been a welcoming community and stuff, and I like it. And I just didn't want to be a part of something. I posted stuff on there just to tick people off regarding the community center and other things. And after that meeting, I called up Kyle, Parks and Recs director, and I asked to meet with him. And I wanted to clear the air with him and everything. And I got to tell you, what a class act this guy is. He met with me, very professional, answered all my questions with the community center. And you know what? He made a lot of sense why there's no, I didn't realize exercise equipment wears off and wears out in 3 years. And he was explaining a lot of other things that you know what? He answered the questions and I changed my mind. That's going to be a really, that's going to be our downtown. That's going to bring people together. It's going to be a positive for this community. And what he explained, I mean, it's the first time you guys are going to, the special needs programs are going to have a gym and different things and stuff. There's a lot of things that we've been using schools for and other things, and now we're going to be having them in a house, and people are going to meet. And man, I wish I would have met with him before I got online and start saying stuff that I didn't have the answers for. So I want to apologize to him and his department. They do an excellent job, and the council and stuff. I mean, the building may not be perfect, but it's not as bad as what I thought it was going to be. So I just wanted to start off 2020 with something positive, because when I read about the city and people are saying that it's hateful, I see a lot more positive. I see what the police department did. That was great what they did with that young man building that car, and I see a lot of other stuff. I see, if you walk into the Sterling Heights Library, it's amazing how the families come together, the programs and stuff, everybody. What a phenomenal place. And the Parks and Rec and the Nature Center's the same way. So I just want to thank you, and I want to thank Kyle again for meeting with me and stuff. He answered my question, and I think it's going to be a good positive for this community. So it's very rare. I'm going to let someone know. They said the old Jerry coming back. I don't want to see that, because sometimes it wasn't that I was always negative, but if you ever want to see something special, go to a memorial at the Great Lakes National Cemetery. Go to a veterans thing and go. I was just there this past weekend, and a young lady's buried there. She passed away at 20. We really have everything going for us and stuff, and there's a lot more positive than negative. And the refugee thing, I think it's a good thing. We all come from somewhere else, so thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Shea. I appreciate that. Anyone else under communications from citizens? Yes, ma'am?
Council. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Donna Hermes Zabro. I live on Stoner Drive in Sterling Heights. My grandson, Dominic.
Hi, Dominic.
I wanted to talk about the resettlement, the Chaldean resettlement operation going up. I want to be very supportive. My husband's Chaldean, his grandpa's Chaldean. So I want to tell you some of my thoughts. What can I do to help? There's more to resettling than just putting someone in an apartment. How many refugees are we talking about here? I mean, how big is this apartment complex going to be for people? 1,000, 10,000? You can be supportive to a point until you feel very outnumbered. It's only the beginning of resettlement, it's not the end. A lot of things are involved. And if it's low income or limited income, the taxpayers around them absorb it in more ways than one, I think. And this concerns me as I know it does you. Let me know if I can help. And just for some old lady sarcasm, I'm entitled. I think we should rename Sterling Fest Diversity Fest. It could happen. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Dominic, thank you. That's not a way to get 8 minutes, just if you're thinking out there.
Two people at once.
Anyone else under communications from citizens? Mr. Neal?
Yes. One thing I really wanted to talk about, there are a few things. But what kind of jogged my memory, maybe you could help jog Mr. Rackey's memory. If possible, the police chief's here, maybe you could talk about an instance that happened between us recently, kind of that Mr. Jefferson brought up. You seem perplexed. Mr. Yozakowski, would you like to reiterate, or maybe I could bring the police report next time? I wasn't expecting that. You seem very perplexed. Anyway, as Mr. Jefferson was talking about, your constant harassment of people online, how you were harassing, I believe it was you were talking about Joe Dunlap, Joe Dunlap going to some gay bars or something like that. I'm not sure. Anyway, is that wrong, or? He's nodding. Anyway, but like I said, there's a police report, and we have the police chief right here. You can fill us in more. Anyway, what I really want to talk about is, I don't know how to go about this, but when you go, I think it's southbound Shaner, there's a curve, and there's a bunch of trees. I'm not sure if it's before 17 or before Utica. There might be two curves. But anyway, I think it's before 17. You come right up to a stoplight. And I've noticed this multiple times, that sometimes people slow down. I wonder if they're slowing down because they're anticipating it's going to be stopped, or they're not sure. And I've seen this in other communities where they have, say, maybe a flashing yellow light or signal when flashing. I'm not sure the course of that, or if that's, something that's gone to the wayside. But I think that would kind of maybe help people out too, let them be aware, because I've seen the other opposite side where people are speeding up and then suddenly slam on their brakes because there's cars stopped there with red lights, that because of the way there's a curve and because there is trees blocking it, everything, that you cannot, see the traffic there and you can't see the light, whether it's red, yellow, or green. So, another thing, as we are getting more monies, I wonder if there's a possibility, I've noticed this too, that I'm not, right before, when you go, I'm not sure if the other side of Shaner, but I know it's definitely right in front of Freedom Hill on 16 Mile, as you were going eastbound. The road's in awful condition. And we're talking about a amphitheater, another thing that Mr. Radke is apparently, bewildered about, that here's a place where I've met people, I've even had people come into I live very near to Mrs. Yarko. I've had people even come to my subdivision saying, asking for me for advice to get around and things and talk to, I have somebody, when Shaner was backed up down the road. So we get people coming from all different communities and they come into our area. I know it's probably, a city or a county responsibility, but anyway, that's still a county park and still in our city. And they're driving on these horrible roads. And people come there for concerts, people come there for events, people come there for campaigns, people come there for all sorts of things. People come there just to recreate, and they have to drive on these horrible streets. I think that's some area that I hopefully we can, address the county about and possibly fixing up, along with hopefully Shaner Road. Maybe sometime, I'm 39 years old, maybe by the time I'm 50 or 60, maybe Shaner will finally be done. Who knows? It's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Anyone else under communications from citizens? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm John Matthews. I live on Maple Crest, right off of DeQuinder on West Sterling Heights. We just got back to the new year after school started up again. I'm a teacher. High school math is usually my specialty, and after break, it was not the foremost thing on kids' minds. It's not what they were excited to talk about. They wanted to talk about a lot of the events that happened and that they had seen on the TV, the fires in Australia, the events in Iran, and as we discussed some of these things, we came to reflect how fortunate it is that we live in such affluence here, and that, some of the things, as we listen here tonight, a road here or a light there, those are very minor in the scope of some of the problems in the world today. I was very pleased to see the support that the city had for refugees coming from such locations as these. These are people who've had to endure extreme circumstances many of us couldn't even dream of, and they come here with but a bag or a shirt or something, barely enough to get to work, and work they do. Many of the students I have are immigrants and or are children of immigrants themselves, and they're extremely hard workers. And I was not such a hard worker myself when I was a child, and I can only admire the tenacity that some of them have with the circumstances they have, as they tell me at lunch or before or after school. I really admire their perseverance and their resilience in the face of all these things. For the city to express that support, even when it is not required, is a brave step, and I think that sparks some hope in their hearts, especially as they see these things going on throughout the world. It's nice that they can know they have a welcoming community. I myself didn't move here because I thought this community was fearful of people different than themselves. In fact, I thought they were rather embracing of them. I find it a very nice, diverse community. I live in Sterling Heights, I work in Troy, and I'm blessed to be around such diversity every day, and I think it makes my life all the richer for it. I'm very happy the community center is opening now. I did see that news bulletin in the Sterling Sentry. It just so happens that's also going to be my wedding day on Leap Day this year, so it's a very exciting day for me on a personal note, but it is a once in every 4 years day, and I hope that it will be a good day for you as it is for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Matthews. I saw that, and I saw Mr. Mayor Dion from Utica volunteered. He got in before me. Miss Catula. Front page, Star, Macomb Daily.
That was a surprise. Hello, everyone.
Full page, not like just above
I
the
know,
fold.
I was very surprised.
Above and below the
I
fold.
told her I would
I've
wear
never had
something
that.
nicer, but she didn't. Hello, everyone. I actually came tonight because the last few weeks, my kids laugh at me because I'm not that huge of a social media person. I will post things and then I will go read comments, and they're like, people don't read comments, and I'm not 10, so I shouldn't hashtag, but I do. But I've just been reading so much negativity. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that someone would say something negative about immigrants and refugees. I will tell you, I've been in America a little bit over 50 years. And if my family wasn't welcomed, I will tell you, I've had 5 children graduate from Sterling Heights High School. One of them is a teacher in our district. And she got married, bought a house in Sterling Heights. And I wouldn't be here. Everyone sitting in this room wouldn't be here if their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents weren't welcome in the United States. I wouldn't be speaking here in front of all these people that weren't welcomed. So it just really, really surprises me. I've been very fortunate to wear a lot of hats in my lifetime, and I still sit on the Warren Consolidated Board of Education. And I see Samaritas here and the Immigrant Rights Center that we work really closely with. And I've been very fortunate for the last 14 or 15 years to be able to read the graduation speech for probably the most diverse high school in Sterling Heights. And when people talk about, oh, we're a melting pot, I really believe that the city is actually more of a mosaic. So if anybody sees a melting pot and things are melting, look at us like a mosaic. And we are so beautiful because all our cultures are coming together. I often laugh and tell my kids, I can just go to one shopping center and I'd be able to eat Chinese for lunch, get my nails done, eat baklava for dessert, and do everything in just one little shopping center. And I would enjoy, 5 or 6 different cultures. And so I just, want people to really understand that and not just comment, a lot of comments about illegal refugees. First, I say this to a lot of people, that, to become an illegal person, there's countries that you have to pass through, right? Especially when they talk about illegal Iraqis. There's 129 countries between Iraq and the United States. So I'm sure one of those countries would stop them and say, hey, you're illegal here, right? Before they even got here. So sometimes education. Mr. Shea said that he, came up here and said, just by spending a few minutes with Kyle, and he really understood, and it really comes with communicating your concern before you just go out there and put things out on social media, because people really, right now, that's their only, source of information, and they tend to believe all that. And it's so hard because it hurts the rest of us. I know when we have people that come forward and say, we're going to do something for the city, we're going to do something great for the city. I've been very fortunate for maybe 18 of all the 19 years we've had the culture exchange going on, that I've been a part of it. And many of the people that replied negatively come to that culture exchange, and they really, really enjoy it. So it really, really surprises me that I hear that. But just one last thing, too, that I did also read was about how refugees and immigrants are they don't pay taxes and how they deplete some of the government assistance programs. But if you really check out, it's not my demographics, but if you check out the demographics on people that are on mean-tested benefits, refugee and immigrants are on the bottom of that list. So if people just really understand that, they'll, really appreciate what they're doing, making businesses, building businesses, paying taxes, making jobs, and really, contributing to the city and to the United States. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Catula. Anyone else under communications? We already had you, Ms. Chi, so sorry. Anyone else? Not okay, Ms. Early.
I'm gonna be the bad apple, I guess. As all of you know, I'm an immigrant from South America and an American citizen who understood the importance of assimilating to this country. I'm blessed to live here, call it home, and feel safe. As it was mentioned before, Mr. Hackle sent a letter to Mr. Pompeo to consent to initial refugee resettlement in Macomb County. After much backlash from residents on social media, he sent a letter to the cities on January 3rd, where he let the cities know that they could withhold from his consent. Mayor responded today, quote, "There is no ability for the city to opt out. Mr. Hackle is saying the city had the ability to inform Secretary Pompeo that they do not wish to receive refugees. Such an action will be merely symbolic and had no legal effect. Well, it's your moral and fiscal responsibility to think about the residents first. We heard all the speeches about how great our city is. However, I find really hypocritical that some people in those comments mention call us bigots, haters. Some people sitting in this podium, including Mr. Radke and Michael Taylor, quote, Michael Taylor stated to me, "I think you should go away. I will pay your moving expenses because you hate and bigotry," end of quote. So what is your compassion? Those people who live here are your residents. We are paying taxes. We are here and have proven what we do. However, all the hate is spread in those pages against people who are against and had the opportunity this time to say, let's put a stop now. You, the ones that did it, and those in those pages, it was outrageous. And that is not the welcoming city that everybody's portraying here. Over there in Facebook, Sterling Heights is another city where anybody opposes something like this, you want us away. So you want the people here to go away, but you are bringing this beautiful scene. And I'm an immigrant, so don't play with, to me, the humanitarian card or the immigrant card. I know what it is to be an immigrant. And I know lately in this city there is a lot of hate for anybody who supports your leftist agenda. So I'm asking you, please, put us first. Show kindness to us too. We deserve that kindness. Put a stop. Send a letter to Mr. Hackle and say stop, opt out from the refugee resettlement program for now. Also, speaking about actions, I wanted to ask the council, and I have a copy here, we need to present a resolution to ban Macomb County from becoming a sanctuary county for illegals. I do have a copy here, and we will proceed that, the residents, to do it. I want to show you the copy, and if you want to use it, to be a mediation between the county and us. And next, I would like to ask you to present a resolution to the county to declare Macomb County a Second Amendment sanctuary county. We are going to get petitions for that. We are going to get signatures for either one of those three. So our actions, and I'm going to put it here, is for the city and the residents, please, here so you can remember what needs to be done to opt out from the refugee resettlement program, to ban Macomb County from becoming a sanctuary county for illegals, and to declare Macomb County a Second Amendment sanctuary county.
Mr. Radke.
Out of time.
Okay, you're out of time, Ms. Early.
Thank you, I appreciate
Mr.
your
Young.
time.
Thank you. Anyone else under communications from citizens? If not, I'll close that portion, go on to reports from city administration. Mr. Vanderpool?
Mayor, just a couple of quick follow-ups. First, there was a question regarding permitted trees in the city. You can go online and get a list of all the trees that are permissible. That's been widely promoted by the city. We are increasing our tree canopy. I was looking at some stats earlier. For example, in 2015, this is just a city, not to mention private developers and homeowners and so on. In 2015, we planted 210 trees, and that increased significantly over the years. Last year, we planted 562. In 2019, 700, and we're estimating 1,100 in 2020. So we have a significant effort underway to increase our tree canopy, and we're making some steady progress. There's a question about Metro Parkway Road. That is a county road. They do have some improvements planned for Metro Parkway. I'll have to check the specific area by Freedom Hill. Shaner is also a county road. The last segment of Shaner will be done this year, starting late spring, early summer, and that will complete Shaner. I will say the city, over a 7-year period of time, will be investing, which has already occurred and still a few more years to go, over $400 million in various roadway improvements. Many of you have seen it in your neighborhoods. You've seen the roadway projects that have been completed the last few years. To say that we're not making steady road progress is certainly an understatement. But that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Mr. Koszybski?
Thank you, Mayor. We do have one item for tonight.
Okay. Council, any reports or new business? Mr. Yanez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to bring up a couple of things. First of all, Mr. Neal, thank you for bringing to my attention the issues with Chappelle Park. You had contacted me at the end of August about the dead and dying trees. I responded to the park. I went out there in the middle of September, and on September 18th, at that point, I contacted Kyle Langlois to inquire about not only the trees, but some of the other issues. And on September 18th, I responded with an email to you in regards to what the results of that conversation were. And the fact of the matter was, because of the heavy rain, they couldn't replace the trees in the spring. I got a commitment from Mr. Langlois that they were going to replace the trees and fix the other problems next spring when the weather is appropriate to it. So I have been on that issue, and I will continue to stay on that issue, make sure that gets done. But thank you again for contacting me in regards to that. I do want to say again to Mr. Jefferson, again, I have had conversations with city manager after the last meeting, and we are all in agreement that our city, the city employees should reflect what the city looks like. And that is on our mind, and we're all very serious about it. You can't grab people off the street and put a uniform on them, right? But we all agree that it should, and we hear what you're saying, and I appreciate you bringing that to us. It was mentioned about Great Lakes Cemetery. I appreciate that. If you've never been to Great Lakes National Cemetery, you should go. The reason why it touches me is because our good friend Eric Post, who worked for the fire department, is buried there. You know, Eric died of cancer. He got his cancer serving the people of the United States in Bosnia during the early 2000s, protecting those people from mass execution, those refugees. And Eric died for that. And those refugees came here and established themselves, just like my grandparents did when they came from Mexico and from England and from Canada. When I was in the state legislature, I had the opportunity to work with Samaritas, and I appreciate the work that they do with refugees, and I am grateful and proud that we are a welcoming state, a welcoming county, and a welcoming city, and I feel very strongly that we're going to stay that way. And then through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, if you could, I know we tabled the issue about the property on Utica Road, but that is an issue with me. I'm a bit of a homer because I live in that area, but Utica Road is in awful shape. I can't imagine, another residential property being built there. I hear about the wetlands as well, and I'm very concerned with that. Can we just find out what the status with the county is on Utica Road and what the plans are for Utica Road and report back to us, please? I'd appreciate that, and that's all I have.
Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Yanez, I have an update on Utica Road. So the Utica Road will be resurfaced from Hayes to Shaner this construction year. So spring, summer, and the fall. Again, I don't have the exact time, but it will be resurfaced, and you'll notice some marked improvement.
Thank you.
Great news. Council, anyone else?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Radke.
Wow, a lot of interesting things being said today. I agree with Councilman Yanez. My grandfather came from Sicily to the United States in 1947 following World War II. destruction that it wrought, Italy and Sicily. I can't think of a better place to move than Sterling Heights. And I think that, we were asked, where is your compassion? I think we have compassion. I think we're settling people who come from a place that's strife-driven, it's war, a lot of negative things, and bringing them here to Sterling Heights is one of the best things we could do for them. Because study after study after study shows that they become productive citizens, that they give back more than they take, that they start the families of tomorrow. Studies show that immigrants have often, even in Detroit, kind of stemmed some of the population loss to other places. They're replacing residents that have left elsewhere. They're bringing back both inner cities and suburbs. They are a net benefit to us, so I'll always stand up for them. I find it funny to be lectured at the podium by someone who was endorsed by a known hate group in one of our city council campaigns. So basically, I think it's...
Ms. Early, you're out of order.
So,
Mr. Neal, you are out of order. You're out of order. Mr. Radke, go ahead.
So to be lectured at about immigrants by someone who was supported by a hate group is offensive on so many levels. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Neal, we'll have you, been called out of order. You had your time. You've spoken multiple times at the meeting. I know you like this attention, but I'm not going to tolerate it. He's allowed to speak. He's allowed to speak, and you are out of order. And if you continue this, we're just going to have to remove you. Mr. Radke. All right, Mr. Jefferson, we're not going to have back and forth from the entire audience. Okay. Mr. Jefferson, you are out of order. Mr. Neal, you are out of order. If we continue to have interruptions from the audience, I'm going to have the officer escort you to the back. You can stay back there where you can't interrupt the meeting. Okay? I know this is funny to you guys. I know you get a big kick out of it. But we sit here, no, Mr. Jefferson. We sit here quietly, patiently, waiting for you to speak. And you've said a number of things. People have said a number of things that we don't necessarily agree with, made statements about us that we might feel personally we disagree with. We're not going to interrupt you. I interrupted Mr. Russo for the sole purpose of telling Thomas Neal to stop talking from the audience. It's distracting, it's hard to focus, and it's not professional, it's not courteous. So if you all want to, shout out like your fourth graders in a classroom, we're just going to have you thrown out of the meeting. But it's not courteous, it's not respectful, and it's not professional. And I ask you to please operate with some decorum. Mr. Radke.
Thank you. To get back to my point, I will always stand with helping people become better citizens and better residents. 1/3 of our city is foreign-born, and I think that we live in one of the most diverse, wonderful places to live in the state, if not the country. We have a safe community, and we have one of the highest foreign-born populations in the state, right here in Sterling Heights. So a lot of the information that's being shouted out from the rafters on Facebook and elsewhere is just plain false. It's just plain made up. Mr. Mayor.
I don't know what to say. You continue with the theatrics and the groaning. Mr. Radke, please continue.
So the idea that these people are somehow going to harm our wonderful community is just unfounded. I love living here. I know all my neighbors. I can look down my street and I have people from many different countries. A lot of them came from someplace else. Some of them are refugees. And we live in a wonderful neighborhood. I live at 15 Mile and Dodge Park. You can come visit my neighborhood anytime. You'll see it's a beautiful place to live. So all this unfounded hatred, I don't understand it. And I also know that if we were asked to opt out, I'd vote against that. Because I think that this makes our community better, stronger, a great place to live. On some of the other stuff that's being said here, look at who, I also ask people at home, look at who's making these claims. Who do you believe? That's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Council, anyone else? Mrs. Zarko.
I know. I wasn't going to say anything, and I have to tell you that Mrs. Catula really inspired me today. Because probably 50 years ago, I was involved, and I'm not originally from Michigan, I'm originally from Ohio. And where I'm at in Ohio, we have a festival every year that's called an International Festival. It's a 3-day, actually it's a week process. And I was fortunate enough to represent the Polish community at that time. when you go through life, there are certain lessons that are life lessons that stay with you forever. And 50 years ago, I learned exactly what Mrs. Catula was talking about today, it is bringing together of people and recognizing our sameness and not our differences, and educating one another on our cultures. To me, it's a great learning experience, and it's something that we've all been open to in our own families. My dad came from a family of 8 brothers and sisters, and each one of them, although they were of Polish descent, somebody married somebody that was Croatian, Russian, Hungarian, Irish. So, I mean, for me growing up, we used to call it our own League of Nations, because we would take part in all of the different cultures because of that extension. So as I was sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, I have 29 cousins on just one side of the family. And if it wasn't for immigration, we have college professors, social workers, contractors, artists, nurses, doctors, journalists, insurance agents, farmers, auto workers, a deacon in the Catholic Church, a state police officer in the state of Ohio, teachers. I have a yacht captain as a cousin, and a council member. And this is what happens, and those are the only ones I could think of off the top of my head. But this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. We are better for it because of immigration. We are better for it every single day of our lives. So I don't know, and if you read everything that the county executive is talking about, this has nothing to do with illegal immigrants. This is all about legal immigrants coming into our country through the portals that we have established. So I don't understand the anger that's involved here. I don't understand it. So that's all I have to say on immigration. And my next thing is, we're going to start talking about the census, and we want everybody to be counted. So I want all of these people that are coming in to be counted. So, so we'll give you updates as we go along, but I certainly want, I want us to get our fair share from the government. So we want to make sure that everybody's counted. So anybody that's representing an ethnic group, you get out there and tell them that we're out there for the right reasons, and we're not there to punish you. We're there to help each other. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Zarko. Very well said. We are a welcoming state. We welcome everyone from everywhere except for the state of Ohio.
Oh.
All right. Anyone else?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Schmidt.
Thanks. You know, to start on the refugee resettlement program, this program has been in place for many years. This is not something new. We had an influx of refugees a few years back that I believe is much larger than the influx that's coming now. And they didn't all come to Sterling Heights. They came throughout the Detroit metropolitan area. So why all of a sudden, because a formal acceptance of the program has sparked all this anger and outrage and fear, I don't understand it. This is a program that's been going on for years. The refugees have been coming here and they've been part of our community for years. So now, for all of a sudden, everyone to be fear-mongering that these refugees are going to come in and they're criminals and they're not vetted, and I don't understand it, because we've been accepting refugees for years. We've not seen an influx of crime and what people are referring to. You know, I work in the schools as well, and I can tell you that some of those stories that Mr. Matthews referred to, those kids have lived through things that I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. And we are accepting them into our community so they're safe. So they can be here and they can go to school and they can go to church and they can have friends and they can have parents. Some of them have watched their parents be killed. And I've spoken to those kids. So this outrage just outrages me because it makes no sense. It makes no sense. We're all of the same flesh, are we not? So that's where I stand with that. You know, the cultural exchange, I have to tell you, is hugely successful. We're so excited it's going to be in the new building this year. Over 1,000 people. I bet we have more, much more than 1,000 now that we have the bigger building to fit everyone in. It's my favorite night of the year. We get to learn about each other. We get to share each other's food and each other's likes. And yes, we are, like Mrs. Yarko said, we are more alike than we are different. You just have to keep an open mind about that. You have to be accepting of things. And I'm in full support of us to continue the program because this is a continuation. It's not something new. That being said, speaking of intersections, Mr. Vanderpool. No, I'm a happy camper. I'm a happy camper. My intersection, I was telling my daughter today when we were stopped at the red light in the right lane, because there's now a left lane and they're all striped and there's signs up at Moravian and Shaner, and I am happy. Mr. Vanderpool, I'll be the icing on the cake in the spring when that traffic light gets put up. But for now, thank you very much for your diligence in getting that project done. And I have nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Very well said. Ms. Sarowski?
Well, that's a little bit of a tough act to follow, Mrs. Schmidt. So that was very well said, though. And I have to weigh in a little bit on this because it has obviously been it's been a deal. It's been a big deal. But first thing I have to say is I cannot believe in 2020 that legal immigration is being tried to be turned around as something to be feared. I can't believe it. And by the way, Facebook is not reality. Those of you who live and breathe it, please go spend your time somewhere. Go volunteer at a hospital. Go volunteer and help immigrant children read if you find your kindness in your heart. Facebook is not reality, and stop your pettiness and stop your games. It's just ridiculous. I live every day taking care of people, live every day making sure people live and breathe. And it's just appalling to me that that's this is coming from. So with that, as a third generation, my parents were lucky to be the first college graduates from their first generation parents. If they were not welcomed legally into the Metro Detroit area, none of us, I wouldn't be here, and my whole family wouldn't be here. We're talking about, as many of us have said, this is legal immigration. It's not about becoming a sanctuary city. It's about becoming a place where they can come safely. Luckily, my relatives only fled poverty and famine. They didn't flee war. They didn't flee with the shoes falling off their feet and running like some of our Chaldean friends have. Some of our Bosnians, some of the Albanians that have come here. My best friends are not American born, they are foreign born. So I have that perspective. And I cannot stomach anyone, thinking that their position in this country makes them better than another because they got here first. That is unconscionable. It's certainly un-American. And I will be the first person to let you know what I think of that. So, on that note, I want to say Happy New Year to everybody. Apparently it's going to be a fun one. It is 2020. Hopefully this will give us a little bit better perspective in the world, a little further, better eyesight. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sarowski. Mrs. Koski, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to comment. My grandparents came to America in the late 1800s, both my husband's parents, grandparents, and mine. They both settled in the Upper Peninsula. They were fishermen, lumberjacks, and farmers. So I guess that makes me an immigrant also. I've been on council for 30 years now. When I first was elected, there were the Polish group, the Italians, and the Germans. I've had the opportunity to watch Sterling Heights grow in population and become extremely diverse. We have a Chaldean Foundation Center over on 15 Mile Road. Mr. Morton has been doing a tremendous job helping people get settled. There has been talk about, and moving forward, I don't know what the status is now, but providing housing and guidance for additional refugees coming over. Our last conversation, he indicated that he doesn't expect that many, that there's not going to be what there used to be. But at least they're taking care of their own, and they're taking care of others that choose to come to Sterling Heights, giving them guidance as far as health care, education, English as a second language, and helping them find an occupation or maybe start a business, purchase a car. So in Sterling Heights, I have to say, we take care of our own. We make sure that those that choose to come and live here in Sterling Heights, raise their families, build their homes, that they have some support, some guidance. And I don't think we will ever change because we are a welcoming city. And that's why I think we are part of welcoming Michigan. So with that said, things aren't going to change. Our doors will always be open. And I think we will prosper from that. I'd like to address a few issues that were brought up tonight. Mr. Vanderpool, if you can maybe give a reason why we did the cutting there. I think it's at 17 and Utica Road, Shaner. I think it was, and I can't remember the name of the weed that we had to cut down to make sure that that was eliminated from Sterling Heights. I would also like to know if there's anything that we can do to preserve the wetland directly south of 17 Mile Road, that little section between Shaner and Utica Road. I know it's on the market now, but to me, that is a wetland that we have some deer that kind of make that their home. Is there any process, if you could do some research and report back to council and see if maybe there's some way that we might have that dedicated as a nature preserve? And that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Vanderpool, any response?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Kosky, I just want to comment on the trimming around Shaner and 17 Mile Road since that was brought up. We trim that periodically because the Phragmites grow out of control. There's a number of spots across the city where we have to do that. Even though they're in wetlands, you still have to treat Phragmites because they are a non-native species and they grow, well, they're very destructive, frankly. So that's what happened there. And I'll be happy to report back to council on your idea for the property to the south.
All right, thank you, council. I appreciate the comments made tonight, and I appreciate the individuals who spoke. There was obviously some effort online to rally support to a position that seemingly only one person wanted to put their name and face behind for good reason. The scripture, if you follow scripture, or if you follow really any sort of religion, if you follow any sort of morality or code, helping those who need the most help is probably something that binds every major religion, every major people, every major culture. It's driven our societies for as long as society has been around, and it really forms the basis of our social structure, is protecting one another, helping one another. At one point, we were all born into this world helpless for years and years and years, and without somebody stepping up and taking care of us, every one of us, we would have died helplessly. So to every person that says, well, I did it the right way, I didn't ask for a handout, I didn't ask for any assistance, what did you do the first 10, 15 years of your life? you relied on somebody. And luckily, most of us had a parent or two parents or family to rely on. I don't have an immigration story that I want to tell or that I really can tell. I don't trace my roots back to some other country. My family's been here for a number of generations. And, frankly, I was born a white male in America to a solidly middle class to upper middle class family. In terms of the lottery, I won it. I'm not here to apologize for that. I'm not here to go into anything like that. But when I see people who are in the same position as I am, that are looking down on people from other countries and other cultures and other areas that happen to be just born somewhere else, that was their only sin. That was the only difference between me and that person who was born in the Congo or born in Bosnia or born in Syria, is that they had parents that lived in that country, and I had parents that lived in Michigan in a middle-class home who were white in America. That's it. I didn't ask to be born here. I'm lucky I was. Somebody born in some war-torn country without running water or electricity or a functioning government, they didn't ask to be born there, but they were. And the idea that we're going to protect our own people that are right around us right now, that look like us, that talk like us, that worship like us, is just abhorrent to me. I cannot understand it for the life of me, and I completely and utterly reject that philosophy. And I'm just flummoxed that the drum beater here is someone who immigrated from a country in South America to find a better life here in the United States of America. And God bless her. God bless the ability to live that American dream here and to deny it to somebody else. We're not talking about people who, when we're talking about refugee resettlement, we're not talking about people who coming here illegally. We're talking about people who have lost.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to ignore him because it's not worth my time and my energy. When we talk about refugees who are resettling here, they don't choose to be here. Frankly, they don't want to be here. They want to be in their home. They want to be amongst their friends and family where they live. They don't want to be in a country that's ravaged by war or corruption or religious persecution. The least we can do, the absolute least we can do, is help those. So I'm proud of what County Executive Hackle did, and I'm proud of the comments made by our city council tonight, and I'm proud of the community for coming out and speaking on this issue tonight, and we will remain committed to being welcoming to everyone who is here and just wants a chance at the American dream. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn into closed session.
So moved. Support.
Been moved and supported. Ms. Riska, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Zarko?
Yes.
Mrs. Kosky?
Yes.
Mr. Radke?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Kraske?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Yanes?
Yes.
Motion passes. We will adjourn into closed session and we will not be returning. Thank you.